I talk a lot and get a lot of questions about tech packs. Not surprising, they're pretty important for a fashion designer, and creating an accurate tech pack is always the goal. So today I'm going to talk about 2 pages that seem to cause a lot of confusion amongst my students and the information that's actually supposed to go on them. Welcome back to my channel. I am Mikkel Drew Pelham, a digital fashion specialist teaching digital fashion design and communication. If you like geeking out and learning about digital fashion design software and design communication, this is the channel for you. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. So those 2 pages I mentioned are the design details page and the stitch reference page. And I think the confusion is because a stitch could be a design detail, but for the purposes of a tech pack, a stitch is its own thing and should be called out that way. So then what goes on the design details page? Glad you asked. A design details page should point out important details about your design. Sometimes they may seem very obvious and what you're pointing out might feel redundant, but many things that seem obvious to us aren't so obvious to someone else. And you don't want to make any assumptions or leave anything up for interpretation. So, for example, on this dress, some of the things I would call out as design details are the fit of the sleeve. It's more of a cap sleeve with a bit of a flounce. There's also a self fabric tape that finishes the inside of the armhole. For anything that has some fullness to it, like the sleeve or the bottom of the dress, you want to give the pattern maker some idea of the fullness with a ratio. So I would call that out here and say 2:1 or 1.5:1. That means whatever the current width of the sleeve or sweep is, you want to be twice as large or 1.5 times as large. I might also call out the self fabric belt, but I leave the length and the width for the measurements page. I'd call out the trim at the shoulder and the bottom hem, leaving the specifics about the trim for the BOM. And if there's something special about the buttons, you could call that out too. Now, I just mentioned 2 additional pages that should go in the tech pack. And if you're unsure of what they are and how to get the information to fill out those pages, you can check out my course, Creating a Fashion Tech Pack. Or if you're familiar with those pages and you just need a good template to use, you can download mine for free. And I'll put a link to the course and the free tech pack template in the video description. You can specify the darts and the tucks at the waist. And lastly, I usually mention that there's a collar stand. Again, it should be obvious from the sketch, but I've had many samples in the past where manufacturers have either ignored it or because it's more expensive and more labor intensive to add a collar stand, they've removed it because they thought they had better, less expensive options. Whenever I've called it out on the details page, I do sometimes get questioned if that's what I really want, but at least there's a conversation before someone else decides to just remove it completely. This is the page where I also like to note the fit of the garment. If the fit is relaxed or slim or semi-fitted, I'll usually just write that at the top of the page. And this is especially important for denim jeans or pants, but for any garment that has a specific fit, here is where you'll want to note that. So here's the 2 reasons there were questions about the stitch page. 1, there were questions about why this information wasn't on the design detail page, and I think we've already addressed that. And 2, there were questions about which stitches should be listed. And I want to make sure I clearly answer this because there was a lot of debate about this in one of my previous classes. The stitches you call out on your stitch reference page are the stitches that are visible on the garment. If everything is lined and there's no visible stitches, you don't need to call out anything. You might see some people show things like this in a tech pack. Not only are these not stitches, but these are not something the fashion designer needs to call out. Maybe a technical designer, but not a fashion designer. What you're looking at are call outs for seams. You don't need to indicate that. That's where you rely on the expertise of your manufacturer. And if you don't trust that your manufacturer knows how to stitch your garment, you might want to find another manufacturer. Now, if you really want something specific, that's a different thing. Then yes, you should call it out. For example, if you want a 2-needle stitch clean finish hem versus a 2-needle hem that's just mirrored and then turned up, you'll want to point that out. And actually, even that's something you'd write in your stitch reference page in your details. But let's say you wanted your seams to all be flat felt. Cool. Write that somewhere in your stitch reference page and you're done. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. Plus, if you're working with an established brand, they'll probably already have certain standards for types of seams and stitches they use to join seams. And if you're working on your own, you've probably, at least I hope you have, researched the manufacturer and found someone who either has a great reputation and or specializes in the type of product you're designing. So you can rely on their expertise to know what types of seams are best for your garment. If you're really that concerned about it, I would suggest you send or bring a sample garment to show the manufacturer the level of quality you're looking for, or hire a good technical designer that can advise or do that page with the joining seams for you. So I hope that helps to clarify the difference between those two pages and will help you more accurately complete them. I also hope it helps you to understand that even though these pages need to be complete and they need to be accurate, they don't have to be overly complicated. Thanks for watching today's video. If you still need help completing these or the other 4 pages of the techpack template, check out my online course, Creating a Fashion Techpack, and it'll guide you through all the pages and explain exactly how to get all the information that you need for the techpack. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you find it helpful. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you next time.